As the season goes longer, so does the injury report. Just gets a little bit longer these days. Are we starting to panic, or can we talk you off of the ledge? Plus, we'll get to LaMelo's post-game interview with Ashley Stroline after the season opener, and then we got to look ahead at the Hawks game tonight. Two teams that are going to be competing against one another in that possible play-in scenario. That's all today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. There's Doug Branson. You can find him on the Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mehl. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Hornets Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. Not quite done yet, folks. I got to thank the people that help us once more. Thanks to FanDuel for sponsoring the show. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's go through the injury update. I was trying to do I have any more reads so I can avoid the injury update?
I'll just really quick on the newsletter thing, because I've been thinking about this as I've been doing it every day. And we have a lot of folks out there who listen to us every day. They're dedicated. They're the everydayers. And we love you, and we thank you, and we see you. Salute. But some people, they can't listen every day. They got scheduling conflicts. They have things they got to get to on certain days. And even the everydayers may miss a day. The newsletter is the thing to subscribe to, because it's just in your inbox. And if you miss a show, you get a quick recap of everything we talked about. It's no substitute for seeing our faces on YouTube or hearing the sweet, sultry tones of our voice, but it'll just get you through the day.
If you do subscribe to that, make sure it's not in your spam folder. Don't do that to us.
That's right. Don't do that.
Don't throw away our hard work. Okay, now we have to get to it. Do we have to?
I know. I'm trying to avoid it as best I can. I don't want to talk injuries anymore, Walker. I don't want to do it.
You brought that very point up before we hopped on the mic. I don't want to be this doomsdayer. I don't want to go with the classic joke that every Hornets fan makes, especially even after they see Mark Williams on the injury report and then Josh Green. Oh, great. Here we go again. Brandon Miller gets hurt. Oh, great. Here we go again. It's the same old joke. I see it about 50 times, copy and paste, and then it just increases. I thought about putting out a joke or a GIF or whatever, like once I saw the injury report, it's like, oh, that's longer. That's longer than expected. I did not want that to happen.
The problem is it keeps getting longer, right? I mean, it's not if it got shorter, if it was a blip, this doesn't feel blippy to me. This feels like it's getting longer. It feels like I don't have timetables. I need more timetables. Yeah, I didn't want to be this guy either, because I felt myself in the preseason and in the lead up to this season, I felt myself going, ooh, I'm going to overreact to every single injury because of the trauma that we have been a part of for going on 2 seasons now, where it's not just because, look, every team deals with injuries, but no team other than the Memphis Grizzlies has dealt with more injuries to more significant players for longer periods of time than the Charlotte Hornets. And then you have this Mark Williams injury. There's a lot of question marks around the foot. You had Josh Green. So there's 2 of your big defense pieces that are going to be important for Charles Lee to establish his defense. And then right off the bat, first quarter, really. I mean, he tried to come back in the second quarter, but he sustained it in the first quarter. You've got an injury to your one of your best offensive weapons in Brandon Miller. It's really unbelievable.
All right, so here is the report as follows. Daquan Jeffrey still out with a right hand fracture. Mark Williams still out with that left foot strained tendon. Brandon Miller just listed as out, not even questionable, just immediately listed as out. He's got a left glute strain. We'll come back to that. The questionable guys, Josh Green, still questionable despite not playing in the opener. He has left Achilles soreness still. And then where did this guy come from? Tijan Salon.
What?
Left finger sprain. He's also questionable. Salon was not on the injury report before the game against the Rockets.
People keep sneaking into this club, Walker. Like, this is the injury report has the worst security. People keep sneaking into this club like we didn't hear about a Tijan injury and all of a sudden he's in there. Like, can somebody get to the back door and keep people from sneaking in?
Yeah, I don't know if they feel like there is a tasty treat, if they are the mouse that feels like there is cheese inside this club, but there is no cheese. All that happens is that you get snapped. You're done. You're going to be there, and you're probably going to be there for a while, if recent history tells us anything. What's your takeaway? Okay, let's try to bring us back. All right, no more doomsday.
Hold on, Salon didn't even play in the opener. Maybe this is why, but he wasn't. Do you remember him being on the injury report pre the game?
No, he was not. I know for a fact that he was not. We can even scroll. Hornets PR does a good job. Where it's kind of tough with Panther stuff, but Hornets PR, they have their injury reports still up there, and he was not on the injury report before the Rockets game.
I don't even know what to say. Like, the guy didn't even play any minutes. We were wondering, like, where's Tijan? We were going to talk about that today, and now he's injured. We can't even say where's Tijan. We know exactly where he is. He's in the training room.
Okay, all right, bring it back. Sorry, don't jump over the ledge.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to. I didn't want to be here. I did not want to be in this club. This is the worst club. The music's too loud. The food's not even good. They say they're buffalo wings. They're not really buffalo wings. I hate this club. I want out.
You said buffaloes? You said buffaloes? What?
I can't hear. The music's too loud. Music's getting louder and louder in restaurants, by the way. I'm trying to avoid this conversation, Walker.
Tijan is not he's questionable. He did not play against the Rockets. So I don't think that I don't think that had anything to do with him not playing, but it certainly adds the doubt now as to him not suiting up at all against the Rockets. They were down 18. They come back. Closing time was not going to include Salon. I feel pretty confident about not putting a 6th overall pick that was considered raw in winning time. So that makes sense to me. But Brandon Miller just being out, again, he was seemingly in good spirits on the sideline afterwards, so hopefully he can come back as soon as possible. But we are kind of in the dark here with the questionable designations and with really no timetable to return. That was what was said about Mark Williams after the initial 2 to 4 week reevaluation timetable. So really all we can do is hope that they come back soon and that these things aren't lingering injuries as we go.
A couple of funny. What made me laugh there was the idea that we were talking about Charles Lee mentioning that he could go to a 12-man rotation. And it's like, well, Charles, it's going to be hard to do that when we take 5 or 6 guys away. The math suddenly starts not to work anymore. I'm so sorry, great. Charles. You didn't want to be in this club either. Club Med, that's what it is. You didn't want to be in this club. Yeah. And by the way, we're not the only ones frustrated with the club. I don't know if you saw this, Walker, but our glorious beat writer, Rod Boone for the Charlotte Observer, he's just over it. People asking him, to clarify injuries and timetables. He's like, look, the injuries come in from the media site. They're due at this time every day. So stop asking me about it.
He's not here for it anymore. Yeah, I get it, Rod. We get it. We understand. Probably not as much as you. In fact, 100% not as much as you. But we still get it on some form.
Yeah, look, I think that the Hornets did at least invest in a little bit of depth this offseason. Not enough to counter, losing 3 starters. No team, maybe except for the Boston Celtics and the OKC Thunder, have that kind of depth to compete on a night-in or night-out basis. But if you're talking about some triage to get you through a game against the Hawks, second game of the season, you still have LaMelo. I mean, that's going to be the engine of a lot of what you're going to try to do offensively. And then it's just going to be up to literally everyone that steps on the floor to commit to the defensive end of the floor to save them until 1 or 2 of these guys can get back.
All right, let's not have this just be a complete panic segment and then we move on. You're right. So let's talk about the depth because you are better equipped than last year to deal with some emergency big man depth stuff. So you have Moussa Diabate, who came in and I thought did, well enough. It's exactly what you would hope for from basically a football player just going out there and being a bull in a china shop. It's exactly what I want from him, and also playing some decent pick and roll coverages and stuff and dropping to the rim and making guys hesitate in what they want to do at the rim. So I like that from Diabate. If you need some scoring, now you have Trae Young, who seems to have blossomed into a different player. So minus the Brandon Miller scoring because he's out, enter the Trae Young scoring, which is nice because he was a 23-point scorer, 100%. So Trae Young is right there as well. We love to see that. They are better equipped to handle these types of injuries this year than they were last year, and that's no small step, by the way. Like, that's a big deal.
Can you imagine where we would be right now in this conversation if Trae Young did not show us what Trae Young showed us in preseason and then in that first game? It would be apocalyptic.
If we just had two Mičićes?
Oh, God.
Two Vosses instead of at least one man.
I can only deal with one Mičić.
All right. Let's move on. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
We do want to get to LaMelo's post-game interview with Ashley Stroline filling in for Shannon Spake, but I also want to do the comparison to the Atlanta Hawks. We seemingly do this almost every year, but this is a team that most people expect the Hornets to compete with as far as a play-in spot goes. So we'll get to that in just a moment as well. All still to come. Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awards winnings, Prize Picks, you can have some pride while making these picks as well. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. You can win now up to, again, 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. If you want to play Prize Picks alongside Drewski, the celebrity, I don't know, maybe that's for you younger guys. You guys know Drewski. Joe Budden.
You guys know.
You guys know. Joe Budden. Oh, that'd be pretty cool. MMA champ Sean O'Malley. You want to play with those guys? You can. You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each and every week. Sign up today. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts, like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday. Prize Picks discounts, select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. So again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. More Locked On Hornets ahead.
Thank you for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day. Check out our new free daily Locked On Hornets newsletter at lockedondaily.com. Get a recap on every single episode of this podcast, plus an NBA article from the great Katie Heindel of Basketball Feelings and Mike Shearer of Basketball Poetry, who I incorrectly said does not do poetry, does not do exclusively poetry, because I think he did do some haikus on his Substack, Basketball Poetry. So I apologize to Mike, who also recommended every Hornets box score on his Substack. So shout out Mike, helping me and my wallet. I appreciate it. And you get fantasy basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. So Walker, let's talk about this LaMelo Ball post game. Had some folks talking. He was very candid and gave a shout out to his dad for his birthday, and had a cool handshake with Kemba Walker. Which of those things do you want to start with?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, it was cool at the beginning of this interview. It was just funny. So Ashley Stroline, who recently just worked at WCNC, she is now filling in for Shannon Spake. Well, I believe she does some more NASCAR stuff as the NASCAR season is getting over with. So Ashley Stroline filling in. That's a fine as a sideline reporter. I apologize. I hate doing it in front of the mic, man. I hate doing it in front of the mic. The radio professionalism gets to me. But yes.
But we've talked about this before, Walker. You use this show as a like a preparation zone for it's preparation LOH for the radio for your radio show. You don't do these kinds of things on the radio. That's where you get to be the pro. Here is where you get to, take your jacket off. This is a comfortable atmosphere. It's a safe atmosphere for you.
No, but I don't like coughing on the mic, but I can't help it. When I'm midpoint and there is no escape hatch, I just got to get through it quickly so I can try to continue the point. Okay, refresh. Ashley Stroline, filling in for Shannon Spake. Ashley Stroline did a really nice job, by the way, but she's been doing this for college football, so she's a pro at it as well. She's interviewing LaMelo Ball after the game, and at the beginning of the interview, LaMelo stops her to say, hey, real quickly, before we start, I wanted to give a shout-out to Pops. It's his birthday today. As you know, LeVar Ball, never lost. You know him well. So I wanted to give a shout-out to LeVar Ball for his birthday. That was cool. Fun moment, right? Awesome stuff. We want to see that kind I personality. You didn't like it as much, Doug?
No, I was gonna say I love it because because he interrupted, and you know how much I appreciate a good interruption. That's right in my zone.
Ball, Branson, it's all the same. No, that was really cool. Eric Collins was laughing. He was like, "Yeah, okay, now you can start." It was like, "Yes, okay, now we got that out of the way." Thank you. Yeah, that was lighthearted. At the very end of the interview, Kemba Walker comes over there. I think it's one of these classics. A different player shows up in the background or whatever, and then Ashley, thinking on her feet, says, hey, what's Kemba Walker's addition to the coaching staff been like? What's your relationship like with Kemba? And LaMelo continued to say, yeah, I really like Kemba. He's been great. He's been awesome. We've been hanging out at each other's houses. I really bleep with his family and him. Yeah, so it's
I got the quote. I got the quote here. I got the quote. He said, that's my brother right there. Ball said, that's my dog. Like I said, he gang, I'm gang. We chilling all the time. I bleep with him. That's family.
Okay, that's family. Gotcha. I didn't know. I thought okay. Anyways.
Unquote.
The the F-bomb that he dropped at the end, Ashley chuckled and said, all right, LaMelo, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Any thoughts on LaMelo dropping an F-bomb? And also, really, because it's not the first time that he's done.
Oh, that's it, right? Yeah, I was going to say that. This is not it. Almost every time, and it's not just in these interviews. We had this moment where during the Charles Lee introductory press conferences, a lot of players showed up, and some guys were taking pictures for social media, and you had LaMelo Ball flipping off the camera in one of those. So he is unmistakably, unapologetically who he is. He's very aware, it comes off as unaware, oh, I'm on TV and I'm not. But I don't buy that because I think he's very aware of his brand. He's rare. He's one of one. He's an alien. He's not from here. He's got a lot of little branding statements that he puts around himself, and he's very online. So, so I'm pro this only from the perspective of I want Bally, Diamond Sports Group to incur as many fines. I don't know if they're getting fined for this. I don't know how that works, but if they are, I'm glad because I want our Bally nightmare to be over. So I'm pro this. I think it makes it difficult to market him from a team perspective because everybody is worried about brand safe. And however you feel about that, if you don't care about cursing, that's fine. But a lot of people do. A lot of people have families and kids, and they watch the game and they listen to podcasts, and they don't want to hear that. And so everybody's concerned about being brand safe. And so that's if you're talking about the marketability of LaMelo Ball as he continues to ascend up the ladder of the NBA elite on the court, what can the team do for him on the court? Off the court? That's going to be limited if in these moments he can't be trusted to not do those kinds of things.
Yeah. Is there a potential warning that you could just put up there? Is there a parental advisory,
a LaMelo
explicit
advisory
content warning? Yeah, just right here. Hey, LaMelo's here. We warned you. If you want to mute it, that's fine. But don't blame us.
This is rated M for Melo. This is rated M for Melo.
You got to be aware. Yeah, with LaMelo, and just in case anybody's wondering about the fan base reaction or whatever, it's really nothing. If we use the WFNZ text line / the Twitter timelines, then really everybody just thought it was funny. Everybody just put on the text line. There were people that mentioned it, but really only in a joking manner, haha, crying, laughing face emoji, because this is who LaMelo is at this point. It doesn't. if you care about the fines, then you got to stop putting them on there. Like, that's just how it is. But I don't want that to happen because I would like to hear it from LaMelo. So, yeah, it's all something to me where this is just who LaMelo is, and I don't really care one way or the other, even though I understand how maybe some parents don't want their kids to hear it. But honestly, like, yeah, I don't really care.
Yeah, no. So, I come at this from both angles. Like, obviously, I don't really care about that, but if I am in the car with my kid and I hear a podcast and they're dropping a bunch of F-bombs, then I got to stop listening. I'll listen later, but and I'm like, okay. It does affect me in my listening patterns. I'll say that. But
you reach for the volume. You reach for the mute button.
Oh gosh, yeah. Because honestly, like, I care about my kid repeating it and feeling embarrassed because of the societal things that we think about.
Yeah.
So like,
true.
but I am thinking about this too. LaMelo can get away with that on FanDuel Sports Network, what they're calling it now, formerly Bally's, Diamond Sports Group, whatever. You can get away with that on there. But what happens when the Hornets eventually do start to compete and they're not on FanDuel Sports Network anymore? They're on TNT or they're on ESPN or they're on the dais, after a playoff series. What happens then? And that goes to marketability, but it also goes to maturity. It also goes to not becoming a distraction, not becoming the story. I think there are some things that are in play here if the Hornets were to compete that aren't necessarily, and this is, by the way, that storyline of like Hornets being able to get away with things because no one's paying attention to them has been a storyline for like almost a decade now. But you do have to wonder what happens when they compete.
Once they get to ESPN, that is funny because I do want to imagine him like Julius Randle. I saw in studio with the NBA show that they have on ESPN, and I just wonder LaMelo in studio just dropping a couple of F-bombs, couple of different expletives, and then them just like, okay, well, I don't look, this is live. Like, what do we get? And I don't know if they're pre-recorded, but that would be funny though. Honestly, I would still laugh. Like, this is who LaMelo is. This is who LaMelo is. So yeah, you're right. These are interesting questions though. Okay, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Let's do a preview of this Hawks game tonight, plus compare and contrast both franchises as they get ready for a possible play-in tournament appearance at the end of the season. I was playing with you. What you got?
Oh, I was holding back there. I didn't want to interrupt you. You were my Ashley Stroh line. I didn't want to disrespect you. All right, so I also watched some tape, and I want to get to a thing that I saw in the Rockets game that I think will be interesting. It could have some implications for this Hawks game. But I'll get to that on the other side.
Doug takes two. That's still to come. LOH. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans. Hey, NBA fans. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. If you care about the NFL, if you were watching Thursday Night Football last night, I am a big Puka Nacua fan. I am a fantasy football Puka Nacua holder in many of my leagues, and I sat him on the bench despite going for over 100 yards. He was coming back. I thought maybe because of the injury he'd be limited. No, not so. Not so. I did. I overthought it. I was too smart for my own good. Hopefully you were not, and you bet the over on FanDuel. If you went to FanDuel and you thought all these chumps like Walker Mehl who didn't believe in Puka right away, give me the over, and you cashed in on it, great for you. You can do that at FanDuel.com. America's #1 sportsbook. More Locked On Hornets ahead. We have film review. We have a preview for Hornets Hawks. We also got to get back to that glute strain from Brandon Miller, which hopefully everything is okay. Hopefully he's back as soon as possible. But Brandon Miller will not play against the Hawks because of a left glute strain. I saw that. It reminded me of Rick Bonnell, who used to hop on this podcast a while back, Tuesdays with Rick. And we used to be obsessed with Matt Geiger stories. We used to have a Matt Geiger fact of the day. Rick Bonnell, he dug the show, man, and we dug him too. He's
the late for those that are just jumping on the Hornets bandwagon. He's the late Charlotte Observer beat writer.
Legend, by the way, right? Like they have the media room. They have the entrance right there with a bunch of clippings from Rick stories on newspapers. There's the famous clip on Last Dance of Michael Jordan reading the Rick Bonnell column during the series against the Hornets during MJ's Last Dance. So Rick Bonnell, legendary Charlotte Observer writer, covered the team for a million years. Okay, so Rick joined us, and he told us his favorite story about Matt Geiger. This was July 2018. This is over 6 years ago. I was listening to the show. It's funny to hear yourself 6 years ago because I sound different. Like I can tell some of the differences.
Oh, let's hear it. You want to hear it?
Well, you won't hear me. You'll hear Rick, though. You'll hear my laugh, but you'll hear Rick tell his favorite Matt Geiger story.
Matt Geiger story is, he had an injury in that playoff series right before he was hitting unrestricted free agency and really cashed in. And Dave Cowens, who obviously was as old school as they come, was very frustrated at the fact that Geiger was not available in the playoffs. And so one day, I and Richard Walker and John DeLong, the beat writers at the time, we all walked over to Dave during a practice between games and asked him what he thought about Geiger's status and, if he had any information for us. And Dave, being Dave, he just looked at us and goes, "Oh, I don't know. It's some kind of ass pull. I don't know why he's."
Okay, well, you know what?
Ass.
Okay, well, what's funny is like here we were just talking about the expletives, and then we drop cuss words. So there you go. We are one with LaMelo.
I didn't. Well, hold on. I didn't drop. That was Dave Cowens. I didn't drop anything.
It was Dave Cowens, then it was Rick. So that was 6 years ago. So you can't blame us. Yeah, that's what it reminded me of immediately. This is totally that. Brandon Miller has the Matt Geiger injury, which, yes, if we're even talking about maturity, this is also not as mature, but also still a little funny as long as Brandon Miller can come back as soon as possible. But this is what it reminds me of. And shout out to Rick, man. R.I.P. because I know we miss him around here.
Yeah, I do. Also, I mentioned bandwagon at the top of this. I'm interested in the idea of all of these content creators around the NBA jumping on the Hornets bandwagon after that win over the Rockets. And a few of them were starting to toy with it even in the preseason because they saw what LaMelo was doing and what Trae Young was doing and what Brandon Miller was doing. And I just love the idea of them getting on the bandwagon and going, why is everything broken on this bandwagon? Why are all the musical instruments broken? Why is what's going on here?
It's all broken, man. That's how it is. We're just hoping to keep up. We're hoping to keep enough things to get us through this Hawks game. Also, you have back-to-back too. So actually these injuries, if we wanted to go down a darker path once more, these injuries are not coming at a great time at any point in the season, but you have back-to-back coming up too. So you have the Hawks tonight, then you have the home opener. I hope these guys are ready for the home opener. I hope that's the case.
Yes, but then as we were looking at the schedule, you get a big break between this back-to-back and the next game is not until, the 30th? So I think they get like 3 or 4 days off, which is great if you're trying to get a couple of these guys back. Yeah,
so you play your game against the Hawks tonight and then back-to-back, home opener against the Heat, October 26th, and then your next game is October 30th against the Raptors at home too. So,
and honestly, maybe that's what they're thinking. Too. Yeah, maybe that's what they're thinking with these injuries. Like maybe like let's look at our depth for the first couple of games. Stakes aren't high. It's not a championship team. So let's look at what we got. And then when we get through that little break, we'll start to filter these guys back in.
Give the people something to cheer about. Make sure Brandon's ready to go. It makes sense to me. Okay, what kind of takes do you have after watching the film on this opener against the Rockets, Doug?
Well, in that game against the Rockets, Alperen Şengün dominated that first half. And I think he almost had a double-double in the first quarter, 9 points, 11 rebounds. It was crazy. And so I wanted to really dig in and see what was going on there. What was the adjustment? And I think there were a couple of adjustments on Şengün. Some of it had to do with what they were doing one-on-one with Şengün, just getting more physical. You saw Nick Richards getting more physical with him, getting hands on him, but it was also Grant Williams. Like when they went to the bench, going to Grant on Şengün was really good because even when Şengün would hit a basket, he was going to hit the floor. Like Grant is going to be great foul eating in those kind of matchups where you have a dominant big. Grant is not afraid to go out there and throw some beef at him, knowing, hey, I'm going to pick up like 4 or 5 fouls in this game. That's fantastic. Moussa Diabate was outclassed in terms of I think both skill and size. But when he was in the game with Grant, he was so good at help side coming over. Grant would bottle Şengün up. Şengün would hit him with that final move. But by the time you got to the final move, Musa was able to react and get over there. Final thing I saw on the tape was that, and I think this is important whenever they go up into these matchups where you have a big that is a skilled scorer in the pick and roll, is that they started to get more aggressive with the ball handler in those situations. You would see LaMelo and Trae get physical on those screens, go over the top, chase that guy, lock and trail, and disrupt. Again, buying yourself a second for that big to drop a little bit more. The big doesn't have to come up and be so aggressive because they know that the three-point threat is taken care of by the MIG, the most important guy that Charles Lee talked a lot about in the offseason, the guy who's responsible for the ball handler. So it's on everyone in those situations. And you've got Onyeka Okongwu in this game who was offensively very good in the opener for Atlanta, and obviously, like pick and roll, Trae Young, it's going to be a challenge for LaMelo Ball and a lot of these guys to figure that out. And at least in that second half against the Rockets, they did.
Yeah, and I wonder the athleticism, the mobility out there on the perimeter compared to the size that you have in the drop coverage with Mark Williams being out there. I love that idea, everything that you just talked about, with Josh Green and Mark Williams instead out there on the floor compared to a Moussa Diabate and a whoever else, right? Josh Green is supposed to be your defensive stopper out there. Cody Martin, really, I guess, is the guy that you're talking about because you're going with Josh Green in the starting lineup. Cody, I imagine, will start again for this team with Green being – and he's questionable, but if Green is out, I would imagine Cody Martin starts again. And, yeah, it makes me happy to think about the defensive pieces coming back and realizing that, you know what, they can turn it on. Like, they can go to a different level, and that's what we saw in that second half, especially hitting the glass as hard as they did. Big-time factors in that win against the Rockets. You want to move on to the Hawks, or do you have more takes from film study?
I'm excited about this Hawks game. I mean, it's always interesting to watch LaMelo Ball and Trae Young go 1v1. In a lot of these matchups, honestly, in a lot of these matchups, neither of them play well. So it hasn't been that like one has gotten over on the other. It's interesting, but I think in this one, LaMelo's going to have to play well. There's no scenario without all of these, without Brandon Miller, Josh Green, Mark Williams, if all those guys miss, like there's just no scenario in which I think the Hornets do well and LaMelo's not playing well offensively. I mean, Trey Mann would have to have like a 40-point game. There's just not enough offense down the roster. So LaMelo, 34 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists in the first game. And Trae Young had a really fantastic game on his opening night, 30 points, I believe 10 assists in that game. So he had a pretty big double-double as well. 30 points, 12 assists in his first game. So
we've seen good games from LaMelo against the Hawks. Remember the season opener. They beat the Hawks in their season opener last year. LaMelo did play in that game, but that was when he was struggling because he was just coming back from injury, didn't have all that much time in the offseason. 15 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds on just 27% shooting. So it was not a good game for him last year. But the game previous to that, that's February 13th. It's been a while, right? You're not racking up a bunch of games because you've missed a lot. That game, he was really good. 30 points on 63% shooting, 15 assists, 30 points and 15 assists in that game against the Hawks. So maybe we can get something closer to that because he was closer to that against Houston.
And I mentioned Okongwu. I think he scored like 28 points in that opener off the bench. Like he's not even starting. They've got DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson, Clint Capella, another big, not as offensively skilled, but the Hornets had trouble rebounding too. So
and he's been a Hornets killer before. I mean, he'll just grab 12, 13, 20 rebounds and also shoot 8 of 9 from the field. That I remember, what was it, a couple years ago, I just kept getting so frustrated that there were so many bigs that would miss one shot or go perfect from the field. There were too many 85% field goal games from some of these bigs. Clint Capella firmly in that category, if I can remember correctly. Joel Embiid, the stars, but also like when you're giving it up to Daniel Gafford going 8 of 9, Clint Capella going 8 of 9, and they're also grabbing 15 rebounds. I'm hoping that's not the case anymore.
This game is going to be an absolute boat race. Really, this game, I think, is going to come down to which team can slow the other team down, who can be more committed in transition defense, because both of these, this is going to be a boat race. So I think it's going to be very similar to a game that we saw early last season against the Brooklyn Nets, where it was like, I think both these teams are going to score 140 points. Like, it could be that if the Hornets are hitting their shots, because again, you are missing a lot of talent on the injury list right now. Jalen Johnson, I love him. He just signed a big deal.
Yeah, that deal was something.
Massive.
Yeah.
And Okongwu is interesting, right? Because he was the 6th overall pick in the LaMelo Ball draft, and the Hornets have a 6th overall pick and Okongwu has taken a while to, and he's got a bench role now, but he's taken a while to get some NBA seasoning. I think a lot of people expect Salon to do the same thing. So I don't know if there's many parallels there, but that's something interesting as well. I think it's going to be a really fun game. David Walker will be on the game notes tonight for everyhornetsboxscore.com. We'll have the chat open too, so check it out.
Last couple things for me. So Atlanta, they have only played one game so far. They are 1-0 against Brooklyn after beating them 120-116.
By the way, 116 to Brooklyn. Like, that's what I'm saying. I don't know how much defense is going to be in this game.
Well, and by the way, so what Atlanta has done so far, they took a lot of shots at the rim against Brooklyn. That makes sense with Okongwu being a center and also having one of his better offensive games that we've seen. Trae Young got to the free throw line, shot 16 free throw attempts. He was 14 of 16, which isn't all that surprising, but even still, 16, an alarming number. So try to defend Trae Young as best you can without fouling, because that 4-point difference in the game, you can probably trace that back to, yes, of course, Okongwu, but also with what Trae Young was able to do at the foul line. So just try to defend him without fouling. Easier said than done.
Melo has to be good in this game. Trae Mann, you've got to get some contributions from him as well. But I think, too, the other critical piece of this is Nick Richards. Nick Richards has to have a good game and not take a half to figure it out like he did in that first game. He got fired up, and I think that we saw the replay of, like, after a big play, he comes over and gets a chest bump from Charles Lee. Like, let's get the chest bump pre-game, right? Charles Lee, go over and get physical with the guy pre-game. Let's get him fired up. He's got to come out of the chute good if the Hornets have a chance of winning this game.
All right, that'll do it for the week here, opening week of Locked On Hornets. We appreciate you making us your first listen every single day. We are wherever you get your podcasts, and I mean it. Wherever you get your podcast, we're right there. We're staring at you right now, in fact. You can go to YouTube, subscribe there, like us, do all the YouTube stuff that all your favorite YouTube influencers tell you to do, and go subscribe to everyhornetsboxscore.com. That's Doug Branson's Substack. Listen to WFNZ as well, 12 to 3 every weekday on Sports Radio 92.7 FM. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday to recap 2 different games.
Bye-bye.